The Last Word with Lawrence O'Donnell starts right now. Hey, Lawrence.
Hey, Jen. We have the Georgia Senate delegation tonight. You had Senator Raphael Warnock. Senator Jon Ossoff is going to join me during this hour. Obviously, he's running for re-election and in a tough one, as Georgia always is. So we'll be hearing from him about that. We'll also get the latest numbers from Ali Velshi later in the hour about what's happening on election night.
So interesting. I mean, I just spoke with Senator Warnock about the fact that Republicans didn't move forward with redistricting, but they could next year. Elections have consequences, so important for people to remember. But I'll be looking forward to watching your convo with his colleague from Georgia, shall we say.
Thanks, Jen.
Thanks, Lawrence.
Well, Donald Trump has scored his lowest job approval rating yet in a Reuters poll at 34%. And we have what could be another measure of Donald Trump's unpopularity and disapproval. Baby names. Donald is the new Adolf. The baby name Donald has hit its lowest point in popularity in American history, according to Social Security Administration data reviewed by the website Notice, News of the United States. The federal agency received fewer than 400 Social Security card applications for baby Donalds last year, making Donald the nation's 690th most popular baby name amid Trump's return to the White House for a second term. Less than 400 babies out of 3.6 million babies born last year will have to live with the name Donald, which they might want to change after taking elementary school history classes. More people named their babies Lawrence, a name I would not wish on anyone, than Donald. More babies were actually named Princeton last year than Donald. Princeton, a name I've never heard for anything other than a town in New Jersey. And, oh yeah, a university. Adolf dropped rather dramatically in popularity after Adolf Hitler executed 6 million Jewish people in death camps while he was losing World War II before he took his own life. And we learned last night from the reporting of Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan in their new book, Regime Change, Inside the Imperial Presidency of Donald Trump, that Donald Trump happily compares himself to Adolf Hitler because a caddy for a retired professional golfer wrote an assessment of the most powerful people in history in which the caddy concluded that Donald Trump is more powerful than Adolf Hitler was, or Joseph Stalin, or any of the other mass murdering, hateful, sociopathic dictators in history. And Donald Trump is proud of that. Donald Trump is so proud to be compared to Adolf Hitler that he actually gave that document written by the caddy to Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan. From page 412 of their book, the evident pleasure Trump took in the company of Mao, Hitler, and Stalin. He drew no distinction between those who built and those who destroyed, between those who liberated and those who enslaved. What mattered was that they had had huge power and that he had more. It is all in their remarkable book, which serves as documented confirmation for what many of you have assumed is happening in the Trump White House. Stupidity, impulsivity, no homework, and no one able to stand in the way to save the world from Donald Trump. With a new poll showing only 24% think Donald Trump's war with Iran was worth the costs, and just 23% think the United States is now in a stronger position with Iran compared to its position before the war. But even those people are not naming their babies Donald. At 7:20 a.m. today, Donald Trump, who has lied about his war in Iran every day of that war, posted something on social media that, just based on Donald Trump's past record alone, is probably not entirely true. And so we will approach this with the standard that Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan of the New York Times told Jon Stewart they use for statements from the Trump White House.
We assume, we've gotten to a point where we just assume false until proven otherwise. You assume what you're being told is false until proven otherwise. You don't take anyone's word for it. There's no, what is it, Reagan, trust but verify? There's no trust.
And so, on the assumption that this is false until proven otherwise, this is what Donald Trump posted at 7:20 a.m. today. Iran has fully and completely agreed to highest level nuclear inspections long into the future. Infinity, 3 exclamation points. This will ensure nuclear honesty. If they did not agree to this, there would be no further negotiations. Based on this and other major concessions being made by Iran, I have agreed to allow the Hormuz Strait to remain open with no further naval blockade. However, all ships are remaining in place should it be necessary to reinstitute the blockade, which seems at this point highly unlikely. Secretary of State John Kerry, in the most important diplomatic achievement of the 21st century, obtained an agreement with Iran on behalf of President Obama to allow what Donald Trump would clumsily call the highest level of nuclear inspections in Iran. And when Donald Trump came into office for the first time, he said that that wasn't good enough. Inspections anywhere in Iran at any time just were not good enough. And so Donald Trump voided that agreement with Iran, policed by the United States and 5 other countries and the International Atomic Energy Agency. It wasn't good enough when John Kerry and President Obama obtained that agreement. But now Donald Trump says it's good enough. Any kind of inspections are good enough. Any promise of inspections. The trouble is, Iran says they've promised nothing. They've agreed to nothing about inspections. Iran says what Donald Trump is saying is not true. The New York Times reports Iranian officials said on Tuesday that their country did not make any such commitment. In fact, they said the matter was barely discussed. Esmail Baghi, spokesman for Iran's foreign ministry, said there was no plan to invite inspectors to nuclear sites that were hit by U.S. and Israeli airstrikes. So, not only does the Trump team not have any way of finding out where Iran's nuclear material might be, they don't even know where the nuclear inspectors are.
In terms of when the nuclear inspectors are going to start, it's funny, we were trying to call some of the inspectors last night around 2 in the morning. As you can expect, not many people were answering their phone at 2 in the morning. I expect that will happen at the minimum this week. But we think even some of those conversations with the inspectors and with the IAEA could happen as soon as today. But I haven't checked in with our team since we made that 2 a.m. phone call to some of those inspectors.
Donald Trump is scheduled to go to the Republican senators' weekly working lunch tomorrow in a private room just off the Senate floor, where reporters are never invited in. And so we won't know for sure if Donald Trump runs into the kind of resistance tomorrow that some Republican senators are promising.
I need to know why we've actually even relieved Iran of sanctions that date back to pre-JCPOA. I need to understand how this escrow account works. It's going to have roughly $10 billion coming in, where literally a U.S. refiner can legally now purchase Iranian oil, I guess if it's a lower price than some other jurisdiction. I need to understand why that's a wise strategy before the Iranians have actually signed up to some fairly stringent requirements. I think they're probably going to get $50 billion in revenue, and this is not likely to end the way the president wants it to. So giving them a lot before they actually demonstrate they're negotiating in good faith is concerning to me.
Concerned about the oil sanctions being eased right now?
Yeah, I mean, my gosh, we're back to pre-JCPOA relief on oil sanctions. And so I'm just saying, maybe the president's just got more of a trusting vibe with these folks. I think they're stringing them along.
Yesterday, Republican Senator Tim Sheehy put it another way. He said that he thinks Iran has now made Donald Trump the victim of Iran's rope-a-dope strategy.
What we're seeing now is what the rope-a-dope they usually perform, which is buy time, try to lead us along till hopefully President Trump and this team's out of office and they can re-up their campaign.
Someone on the senator's staff should remind Senator Sheehy that the World Heavyweight Championship boxer Muhammad Ali coined the phrase rope-a-dope to describe what he was doing to his opponent in the boxing ring. Muhammad Ali's opponent was the dope in the rope-a-dope. And so Republican Senator Sheehy just made Donald Trump Iran's dope. Leading off our discussion tonight is retired U.S. Navy Rear Admiral and former White House National Security Communications Advisor John Kirby. He is now the director of the University of Chicago's Institute of Politics and an MS now National Security Analyst. Admiral Kirby, thank you very much for joining us tonight. It's always so important to be able to hear your perspective on this. What do you make of where things appear to stand tonight?
Very unclear. As you can tell from your opening and from the comments that have been made both by Iranian officials and by American officials, it seems like both sides are still pretty far apart. Now, look, I mean, to be fair, we've been through this before. I saw it happen when I was with Secretary Kerry in the JCPOA negotiations. The Iranians will say things publicly and yet privately at the table be singing a different tune. And so we have to allow for the fact that that could be happening right now. But the maximalist positions that both have been taking consistently indicate to me that there's still a long way to go to get to any tangible outcomes here in terms of commitments and concessions by the Iranians that will actually meet our national security interests. In the meantime, I'm concerned, as so many senators are, that that we are making concessions tangibly, effectively, and publicly to Iran in terms of sanctions relief right now. That it will be hard to rein back in should the Iranians not meet their commitments.
Yeah, the point that Senator Tillis is making seems to be so important at this stage. Iran has, at this stage, actually done nothing, but they've already received a great deal in terms of concessions from Donald Trump.
The only thing I could say that they've done, and we have to put a caveat on this too, is the Strait of Hormuz is technically open. They are not firing drones or missiles at ships as we speak. That said, the traffic going through the strait is still just a trickle compared to it once was. But again, we don't think, and they should never have any control over traffic in the Strait of Hormuz. That's an international waterway. Freedom of the seas can't just be for whales and icebergs. It has to be for everybody. So the one concession we've gotten is that the strait's open for traffic. But even then, it's very measured, and Iran still has a trigger, an ability to limit that flow should they want. So you're right. There's not been a lot conceded by Iran so far. I do think it's important to remember we're early in this process. We'll see where it goes. But right now, it appears as the United States is doing more conceding than Iran is doing.
Certainly in the Obama administration, any kind of relief of any aspect of sanctions or anything else was conditioned upon Iran actually formally agreeing to something or actually doing something. This seems to be a concede first, figure it out later approach.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that, Lawrence. What I suspect the American side will tell you is, well, they've opened up the strait. They're not harassing traffic, so we're offering some sanctions relief. But again, we have to keep the open of the Strait of Hormuz in some context here. The other thing that's interesting is the sanctions relief they're offering, the unfreezing of assets. They are using the same arguments that President Obama used and President Biden used when we likewise unfroze some assets. And we're talking about how they were going to be monitored, how they were going to be delivered. But when it was done by Democratic administrations, and I was there for both times, the Republican side was howling quite a bit about the fungibility of funds and assets, and how even if you can control those assets and where they go into Iran, Iran will then be freed up to spend other money on supporting terror. And we're not hearing that same hue and cry from the Republican side of the aisle, which I find rather ironic.
Admiral John Kirby, thank you very much for starting off our coverage tonight.
Good to be with you, Lawrence.
Thank you. And we have some breaking news in the big board with Ali Velshi. Ali, what do we have?
We've got New York 12, District 12, which is the middle of Manhattan. 85% of the vote is in. The Associated Press is projecting that Micah Lasher will be the Democratic candidate. And of course, Lawrence, as you know, in these very liberal districts, the Democratic candidate will likely be the next member of Congress from the 12th district. This was a tight race between Alex Boris and Micah Lasher. Most people don't know these names, but Jack Kennedy Schlossberg was the candidate that some people thought might have an edge here. He's only got 11% of the vote. George Conway, former Republican turned Trump antagonist, has 6% of the vote. So that is decided. Several other districts in New York have been decided. As you saw, Dan Goldman defeated by Brad Lander in New York 10. Claire Valdez defeating Antonio Reynoso. This was a vacant district, so there was not an incumbent. This was Nydia Velazquez's district. And this one we have not called yet. This is District 13. This is Daria Liza Avila Chevalier, also backed by Zoran Mamdani, challenging Adriano Espaillat, long-term incumbent, dean of sort of Latino politics, head of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, 86% of the vote in right now. She's taking a lead. She's got a lead of 2,000 votes. That's because most of the vote coming in now is day of vote. Espaillat was leading in the vote that had already been cast. In the day of vote, she seems to be ahead. But again, we are not able to project this yet. So of the three Mamdani-backed candidates in New York, two have won so far, and the first incumbent has gone down to an outside challenger in the Democratic Party.
Ali, thank you. We'll be watching more as the evening goes on. And coming up, we have more breaking news. Another Trump loss in federal court tonight. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse will join us next. We have breaking news tonight. A federal judge in California has issued an order blocking Donald Trump's immigration officers from making arrests inside immigration courts anywhere in the country. In U.S. District Judge Casey Pitt's 71-page ruling, the judge writes, quote, "For 80 years, Congress has commanded federal agencies to think before they act. That instruction, codified in the Administrative Procedures Act, does not require an agency to make the choice that a reviewing court might deem preferable, but it demands that an agency at least provide sound reasons for following its chosen course. It is now clear that the lack of a connection between ICE's stated rationales for the 2025 courthouse arrest policies and the expansion of arrests at immigration courthouses results not from merely unreasoned decision-making, but a complete lack of decision-making." And the New York Times reports, quote, "The ruling came in a class action lawsuit challenging the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency and the Executive Office for Immigration Review, which is part of the Justice Department, over a surge in immigration-related arrests at courthouses and increasingly long detention of immigrants in ICE facilities intended for brief periods." And joining our coverage now is Democratic Senator Sheldon Whitehouse of Rhode Island, the top Democrat on the Environment and Public Works Committee. He also serves on the Senate Finance Committee and the Senate Judiciary Committee. Senator, what is your reaction to this breaking news about the arrests that were happening in these courthouses?
Well, courthouses are supposed to be sort of protected places, but this has been going on for a while with ICE and CBP. We had an incident in Rhode Island where they had agreed not to operate in the courthouse, and there was a court rule that you can't take photographs in the courthouse, a rule for everyone. And despite the agreement, agents came in to operate in the courthouse. Despite the rule, they started taking pictures. They were such bozos that they were surveilling a high school intern while thinking they were looking for some 30-year-old guy. And then the kid was nervous and went to the judge he was interning for, and the judge walked him out to his car to drive him back to high school, at which point the agents went at the judge by way of like genius clue behavior. He was parked in a judge's only parking spot, and they didn't seem to figure out that he was a judge. So they threatened to smash his windows and drag the kid out of the car, a judge, if he didn't turn over this high schooler. Eventually, they knew that they were wrong. They detained the kid for an hour. But like this kind of behavior is what leads judges to get completely fed up with this misbehavior smack bang in their courthouses. So it really comes as no surprise when you look at their track record of violating an agreement, breaking the rules of the court, being idiotic about not telling a 19-year-old from a 30-year-old, not figuring out that a judge is a judge parked in a judge's only spot, and then F-bombing and threatening to smash the judge's car windows. Like, who does that? So I'm not surprised.
So the Senate voted again to limit Donald Trump's ability to wage war in Iran. This time, 50 senators were enough to get it. 4 Republicans who've joined the Democrats before on this. A couple of senators were absent.
And Senator
Donald
McConnell
Trump
was missing.
Yeah, and Donald Trump's coming to the Senate tomorrow, at least he's scheduled to meet with Republican senators in their Wednesday lunch, where when you listen to Senator Tillis and some others, he could be running into some real resistance about where he is in his public negotiating with Iran, where Iran already seems to be allowed all of the revenues from oil production and oil flows, taking the sanctions off their oil, everything, before Iran's actually done anything.
Yeah, I think he's going to run into a lot more skepticism and irritation than he has before. You've got the Iran deal, which the more you look at it, the worse it looks. It looks like it's significantly worse than the JCPOA already, and allows tens of billions, maybe even hundreds of billions of dollars to the Iranians. At the same time, he's stuffed this incompetent operative, his stooge, Pulte, in as the director of national intelligence, which is ordinarily considered a serious grown-up position, who's already firing people and has a history of rooting through private records for partisan political purposes. Then you've got Blanche coming over that they're all going to have to vote on for attorney general. He's no picnic. And in the meantime, just to put the cherry on top, you've got this complete fiasco with the reflecting pool, which doesn't matter really, except as an emblem of the incompetence and self-dealing in the Trump administration. So the whole thing just is, it stinks. It's rotten. And I think Republican senators, as they close in on November and look at losing their majority, they're getting all fed up with this kind of irresponsible behavior.
And senators like John Cornyn, who've already been knocked out in their Republican primary by Donald Trump, are going to be in that room tomorrow. Senator Cornyn has said he intends to ask some tough questions. It's one of those rooms we can never get a camera into, so we'll never know.
Wouldn't it be nice, though?
Yeah, it would be. Tomorrow would be the day.
Right, Lawrence?
Yeah,
to be a fly
tomorrow
on that
would be the day. That's right. Senator Sheldon Whitehouse, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
And coming up, it is primary night in multiple states, as we've already seen tonight. We're going to have Senator Jon Ossoff join us, running for re-election in Georgia. That's next. With Donald Trump scoring his lowest job approval ratings in multiple polls, 2 days ago, on Sunday morning, Georgia Senator Jon Ossoff, who is running for re-election, spoke at the Beulah Missionary Baptist Church in Decatur, Georgia, about Donald Trump and his endorsed Georgia Republican Senate candidate, Mike Collins.
We see a faithless president. Amen. Self-dealing while he depicts himself as Christ. While he depicts the Obamas as apes. Did you see that? While he plunges the nation recklessly into war, plunders our health care, and sends prices soaring. So here we are in Georgia, where the president sent spies and agents to seize your ballots. Did you all see that, Beulah? Yeah. And why did they go to Fulton County? Why Fulton County? I submit to you it's because the fact that black voters and black political power were instrumental to his defeat is even more offensive to this lifelong racist than the defeat itself. The election deniers. They tell a lie so absurd and therefore so debasing to tell that the act of telling it proves the teller's total and humiliating submission.
Right.
And you may have seen that one of those election deniers now asks to represent Georgia in the Senate. The congressman's son, who supports war and cutting your health care and openly associates himself with bigotry and anti-Semitism. Because the hatred that Mike Collins promotes is a relic of the bad old days.
Right.
Georgia's spirit of tolerance will overwhelm and defeat bigotry.
Amen.
And our defense of voting rights will be so fierce that no plot against the franchise will foil the will of the people.
Joining us now is Democratic Senator Jon Ossoff of Georgia. He is running for re-election this year. Senator, when you're out there, obviously Georgia is filled with Republican voters, filled with Donald Trump voters. Are you, in encountering those voters, are you experiencing any of their alienation from Donald Trump? Because they are the ones who are delivering this very low job approval rating for Donald Trump in these polls.
Lawrence, thank you for having me. And look, Georgia is full of good, decent people. And people need to understand that my opponent, Mike Collins, is someone well known for his poor character and his low integrity. There's a reason that a number of prominent conservatives in Georgia are either backing me or saying they just can't bring themselves to vote for Mike Collins. It's because he is a bigot and an anti-Semite. He's engaged in the vicious anti-Semitic harassment of a Jewish reporter and still refuses to apologize for it. He praised young men who were taunting a black woman on a college campus with monkey noises. His chief of staff was recently revealed to have been working with a white nationalist to try to get a Holocaust denier freed from prison. Mike Collins is currently under federal investigation for the illegal misuse of tax dollars. And all the while, he has been pro-war, pro-tariff, pro-cutting your health care, and voted to double health insurance premiums for more than 1 million Georgians. He will be Trump's puppet if he is elected. And I need folks across the country to understand that he could win this race. Georgia is the most competitive battleground state in the country, and the president's going to spend vast sums of money and his allies vast sums of money to try to get Mike Collins into the Senate for 6 full years. I need folks to go to electjon.com and help me defeat this man who is unfit for office.
The one thing we know and we've seen about Georgia Senate races is that they are very, very close. And when you and when Senator Warnock have won, they have been very, very close. I want to listen to a Republican voter, a lifetime Republican, and I'm wondering if you're running into any of these kinds of Republicans out there in Georgia. Let's listen to Tucker Carlson.
I would not support the Republican Party. There's no chance I would support the Republican Party. How could I or any American voter support a political party that's not loyal to the United States, that puts the interests of a foreign country above those of its own citizens? That's it's not possible to vote for people like that, and I'm not going to. There's no defending this because it's immoral, and it's exactly the opposite of what a political party in a democracy is charged with doing, which is representing its own voters, its own citizens, its own nation, and they're not doing that. So no, I'm out. And if I'm out, then I think a lot of other people are out.
Is that your experience, Senator? Are a lot of other people, a lot of other Republicans out, as Tucker Carlson puts it?
I'm hearing it more and more. And I think, the president's betrayal of his promises, of his movement, and of the nation is so undeniable. The president who promised to lower prices on day one, and right now, Americans are paying all-time record high prices for groceries and health care and housing. The president who promised to keep us out of foreign wars, who has now been globally humiliated by his failure in Iran. The president who promised to drain the swamp, whose family is raking in billions of dollars from foreign princes and oligarchs while he sits in the Oval Office. This president is disgraced. He is a failed lame duck president. And I think we see the country turning against him in a powerful way. But he's a failed lame duck president sitting on $350 million of political cash that he's going to spend in this Georgia Senate race and in races across the country. We can take nothing for granted. And I don't want folks to feel complacent or overconfident because the president's so deeply unpopular. And again, I need folks to visit electjohn.com and make sure I've got the resources to win.
So Donald Trump has a 22% approval on the cost of living issue that you've been campaigning on. And while he faces that kind of number in the United States, he is now expressing concerns about how hard life is in Iran. And he wants to make sure that the people of Iran get help from the United States. He wants to make sure that the people of Iran get food from the United States and all sorts of other supplies from the United States. That's a concern I have not heard him recently express for the people of the United States.
Well, it's certainly not very America first. And remember, it was just a few months ago that he was demanding and promising Iran's unconditional surrender. But the other thing that is really bothering people is that while Americans are paying record high prices for just about everything, the first families becoming billions of dollars wealthier, sweetheart deals all over the world, the president is literally building a monument to himself. As a cancer patient reckons with the possibility of losing health coverage because he attacked the Affordable Care Act, he is adorning the Oval Office in gold trim. I've been saying this for months on the campaign trail in Georgia. I think this is what is really animating so much of the discontent. The Trump family, the Trump administration, they are the elites that they've pretended to hate. They are the spitting image, the living symbols of corruption and oligarchy in the United States. And I think that they're going to face a massive wave of backlash and a rebuke this fall.
Georgia Senator Jon Ossoff, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
And coming up, White House reporters got an important lesson last night, a lesson I've been hoping they would get and desperately hoping they would learn, a lesson about how to interview Donald Trump and how useless it is for them to have the cell phone number of this president of the United States. That lesson is next. The authors of the new best-selling book, Regime Change: Inside the Imperial Presidency of Donald Trump, New York Times reporters Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan, taught White House reporters a lesson last night in how you do it. It is such an important lesson that it bears repeating tonight, and I'm sure it will need to be repeated again and again. It was not something that they said in their first television appearance, which was on this program last night. It came in a discussion with Jon Stewart on The Daily Show, which was taped earlier and broadcast immediately after this program last night. Last night, we showed you a clip of Jonathan Swan's 2020 interview, unforgettable interview, of Donald Trump as part of his introduction on this program, and to remind you that he conducted the single best television interview of Donald Trump ever conducted by anyone, anywhere. Jon Stewart remembers that interview as enthusiastically as I do, and he brought it up last night, opening the door for Jonathan Swan to teach the lesson to Trump interviewers of how you do it.
What do you think is the best way to, you did this in 2020, you sat down with Trump and you were talking about COVID deaths. Mm-hmm. And he was making the case, I think, about the minimization of it. And you brought out facts and figures and you showed them to him. And it was like the world stopped. Like people went crazy for it because they hadn't seen him litigated. Is that the way to report on him? Because we really don't do that very often.
It's interesting you use the word litigated, because the way I thought about that interview was I was litigating reality with Trump. And it was actually the opposite of what you said. He handed me this sheet of paper.
He handed you the sheet.
But it was important because the thing that drives me crazy often watching certain interviews with Trump is the tendency to move on. And it just drives me, really crazy because don't move on.
No.
Stay.
Yes.
Stay.
Yes.
And so this was
stay.
Yeah.
Heal.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So this was a moment where I could have moved on. I actually had planned to move on. We'd spent about 20 minutes talking about COVID. And I was ready to go. There was a lot of other things to talk about. I only had half an hour technically. But then I could tell he wanted to hand me this document. I was like, what's this f***ing document? So he hands me this document, and it took me a moment to understand what it was, but it looked like it had been put together by an intern. And it was essentially this chart where he was trying to argue to me that we're winning on death, basically, on COVID. And it was really preposterous, but you have to sit there, absorb it, and then pop the reality bubble with a needle.
Don't move on. Stay. That was just my favorite thing in that great interview last night, which is available online. You should watch it. Okay. Now that we've all heard Jonathan Swan describe so vividly there just how he did it, let's all go back in time once again and watch in awe as he does it.
Yeah. The point is, because we are so much better at testing than any other country in the world, we show more cases.
The figure I look at is death. And death is going up now. Okay, and it's 1,000 a day.
If you look at death...
Yeah, it's going up again.
Let's look.
Daily death.
Take a look at some of these charts.
I'd love to.
We're going to look.
Let's look.
And if you look at death...
Yeah. Started to go up again.
One. Well, right here, the United States is lowest in numerous categories. We're lower than the world.
Lower than
we're
the
lower
world?
Than
what is that?
Europe.
In what?
Look.
In what?
Take a look. Right here. Here's case death.
Oh, you're doing death as a proportion of cases. I'm talking about death as a proportion of population. That's where the US is really bad.
Well,
much worse than South Korea, Germany, etc.
You can't do that. You have
Why
to go,
can't I do that?
You have to go by where, look, here is the United States. You have to go by the cases. The cases.
Why not as a proportion of
when
population?
We have somebody, what it says is when you have somebody that has it, where there's a case, the people that live from those cases.
It's surely a relevant statistic to say if the US has X population and X percentage of death of that population versus
you
South
have to
Korea.
go by the cases.
Well, look at South Korea, for example. 51 million population, 300 deaths. It's like, it's crazy.
You don't know that.
I do. It's on the.
Don't know that.
You think they're faking their statistics? South Korea?
I won't get into that because I have a very good relationship with the country. But you don't know that. And they have spikes. Look, here's
Germany
one.
low, 9,000.
Here's one right here, United States. You take the number of cases. Okay. Look, we're last, meaning we're first.
Last, I don't know what we're first in. As a what?
Take a look. Again, it's cases.
Okay.
And we have cases because of the testing.
1,000 Americans are dying a day, but I understand on cases it's different.
No, but you're not reporting it correctly, Jonathan.
I think I am, but...
If you take a look at this other chart, look, This is our testing, I believe. This is the testing, yeah.
Yeah, we do more tests.
No, wait a minute. Well, don't we get credit for that? And because we do more tests, we have more cases. In other words, we test more. We have. Now take a look. The top one. That's a good thing, not a bad thing. The top, Jonathan.
If hospital rates were going down and deaths were going down, I'd say terrific. You deserve to be praised for testing, but they're all going up.
They very rarely talk.
60,000 Americans are in hospital.
If you watch the news or read the papers, they usually talk about new cases, new cases, new cases.
I'm talking about death.
Don't move on, stay. That should be the motto of every Trump interviewer now that Jonathan Swan has taught you how to do it. Maggie Haberman and Jonathan Swan had another lesson for White House reporters last night that they taught on The Daily Show, and that shows just how absurdly useless it is to have this president's cell phone number.
You know, this has come up a lot as we've been talking to people about this book, but a lot of reporters have a cell phone number now, obviously. That's,
I got it right here.
I totally would.
Do you have a cell phone number?
Yes, I have a cell phone number.
Can we call him right now?
Let's not.
It's probably a little f***ed up and you guys are professionals, but what if I call him as his pool guy? And I just call him and I'll be like, sir, I'll tell you, this f***ing thing just stays green. There's nothing I can do. I can't even tell you. I don't know what's going on.
A lot of people have his number. And for reporters, it's, wow, I have the president's number and I can speak to him directly.
There's a flattery to it.
And he controls the terms, right? There have been some pieces of news that have come out, but generally speaking, it's him setting the agenda. He says one thing here, he says something totally different 15 minutes later, and it's just him flooding the zone. And it's what he did in New York when he was a tabloid guy.
No question.
Right.
The reason we don't call him on his cell phone is because it's not useful.
Correct.
I mean, what's he going to do? It's a 2-minute call, and he's going to say how everything's great and whatever. And again, like the book, you're not going to get a detailed scene inside the Situation Room that is potentially includes information that's damaging for the White House and the administration from Donald Trump on a 2-minute call. So the type of reporting we do, it's not actually possible to get that from a phone call with Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm. I'm talking more about the cadence reporting, the 24-hour reporting, where it's not possible to have the kind of reflection and analysis that you might have over the quality of the sources.
But we don't do it for our daily reporting either.
Right.
Speaking as someone who has never had and has never wanted Donald Trump's cell phone number, I could not agree more. We'll be right back. Jonathan Swan gets tonight's last word, and that word is stay. Gotta love that.